The love of Christ urges us, impels us, dares us. Each woman called to be a Sister of Charity of Cincinnati has discovered this extravagant love of God in her life and responds with a generous yes.
I always try to figure things out with my head, and this was just one that didn't make any sense to me in my head, but my heart was saying yes, and it kept pulling me deeper and deeper.
When I walked into the chapel, I knew at that very moment that that was where I wanted to be for the rest of my life.
It's okay to be called to the places where other people say you shouldn't go there, or this isn't what God has planned for you, but when you feel that in your heart and it's not where you necessarily would plan to go.
The Spirit is in with and prodding us forward. Then you don't have to be so worried about, I'm the one that's doing it. You know, it's the charity of Christ in and through me that does the urging, the impelling, and sometimes you almost feel like there's something behind you just pushing you, and that is the love of Christ.
Generations of women have shared in the mission of Jesus through the tradition of charity. Profession of vows of poverty, consecrated celibacy, and obedience is the capstone of a gradual process of discernment and marks the lifelong commitment of a sister.
It was the happiest day of my life, the day that I made my final vows. I didn't feel nervous. There was just this excitement and this joy and this peace that was within me.
I entered the community late, unlike other sisters. I was married. I have 3 children, 2 girls and 1 boy, and I was divorced 8 years after I was married. And when I started reading about Elizabeth Seton, who was a mother, who was a wife, and then formed this community, I thought, well, I can do it too. If she's doing it, you know, she's taking care of her children and at the same time taking care of the community, why can't I do it?
I was in college before I had ever thought about being a sister, and I had my life planned. I knew what I wanted to do. I kept hearing this something going on within and feeling it in my heart. And it was like, at first I said, no thanks. Now I've got a boyfriend, I got my life figured out. I'm doing fine. But then it wouldn't go away. And it was not like you have visions or something, but sometimes it's even what, either you might hear something in a song or in a prayer, or lots of times it's what somebody says, something or some experience that you have that says to you, wow, yeah, maybe I could do that too. And you're never going to feel totally sure about it. No, there's no such thing as totally secure. That never happens.
I met a sister at the college I went to. She invited me to go to this little mission down in New Mexico, and I was a teacher, trained to be a teacher at that time. She told me a little bit about the work, and I thought, oh, that would be a great place to go and figure out what I want to do, and I would go to prayer with them. I was intrigued with the stories from the sisters and these amazing ministries that they were doing, and it was just this heart connection that I felt. I always try to figure things out with my head, and this was just one that didn't make any sense to me in my head, but my heart was saying yes, and it kept pulling me deeper and deeper, and 22 years later, here I am. I love it.
For Sisters of Charity, the mission of Jesus, to preach the good news to the poor, to proclaim liberty to captives, and recovery of sight to the blind, to set free the oppressed, is focused through the founding vision of St. Vincent de Paul and Louise de Marillac. Convinced that love is inventive unto infinity, they pioneered a new form of religious life that sought and served Jesus in the poor. St. Elizabeth Seton envisioned a new creativity in charity for the needs of the United States of America. This clear, strong calling continues to draw generous women to lives of extravagant love and service of Jesus in the poor.
At the parish where I work, which is Cristo Rey, it's all Spanish. I'm a pastoral associate. I do a lot of social work. as well as trying to meet their spiritual needs. Sister Blandina and Sister Justina started Santa Maria Community. They were helping immigrants, which is the same thing that we're doing and I'm doing at Centro de Amistad. I'm just following in their footsteps. I mean, they took that risk. They went out and helped the Italian immigrants that were here. It's just kind of continuing the history. I like to tell you a story of an immigrant family that I work with in my community. They were a young family. They were deported. They were walking out of their house, and immigration was waiting for them. They had a little baby, 5 days old. Social services took the baby, and I thought, oh no, you're not. I'm taking this baby. I says, I will take full responsibility of the baby. I went on and got all my papers. There was a lawyer that did not want to give me the okay to bring the baby back to this family in Mexico. So I decided that I would go ahead and take the baby anyhow. We flew to Mexico, met the parents at the airport, reunited the parents with the baby, and that was the most wonderful. You're talking about, the presence of Jesus being there. When that mother and that father, were able to hold that child once more, tears were coming, down their face. The father had tears just coming, especially him. St. Elizabeth Seton was a mother, and she was there present with us, and she guided us and held us in her hand. They were thanking me, and I said, no, it's not me, it's our community, our sisters, because I can't do it alone.
My last year in graduate school, Bishop Swanstrom from Catholic Relief came to our class, our graduating class, and said that they needed mastered social workers in Vietnam. So I went to Vietnam for a year. The exposure to war really touched my heart. Went back after 2 years being back in the States and was there for 2.5 more years. And then from there I was assigned to the west coast of Africa, to Sierra Leone. That had a lot of turmoil. And then to Ethiopia, where there was war. All of those were in situations of war or conflict. I went back to Vietnam, and there I found a lot of vets who were visiting their site of trauma, and they said, you're a rare bird, who was a nun who had experience in war with the education, clinical experience. Why don't you do something with homeless vets? We opened up Them Bones Veteran Community, which is an outpatient program. So since 2000, I've been working with combat veterans and their families, and most recently with National Guard and reservists who are coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan. It's an effort to try to help them to feel comfortable about looking at the fragments of their life that are the result of heavy-duty combat experiences. We used to call that post-traumatic stress disorder, but now they're calling it combat and operational stress problems. Lots of fancy words for saying people were not made for war. If we can help facilitate them to make meaning out of that. Our sisters worked during the Civil War on both sides of the conflict. Anthony O'Connell was very much part of that whole Civil War outreach. I went to the archives and I got this medal out, and it's the badge of the Grand Army of the Republic that was given to Anthony O'Connell. Anthony and the other sisters who served as Army nurses, they're guideposts for me.